Splitgate 2 is a game that needs to succeed. And it's not for the simple financial reasons that you may be thinking. It's because a game like Splitgate 2 is a game that we need more than ever. We've all felt the drag of modern gaming with remake after remake, games that are made basically like a paint by numbers sheet, along with buggy patch it later mentality for a lot of game releases. We've all experienced it at some point. It's rather tiring. And that's where Splitgate 2 comes in. It's a game made with passion from gamers who wanted to make something unique that's within the FPS genre. So they created a game based off their fandom of arena shooters like Halo, the snappy, fast-paced satisfaction of Call of Duty, and the uniqueness of, well, Portal, to make something that really stands out from the crowded FPS space, but proudly wears its influences on its sleeve. And at the time of releasing this video, they're actually doing a public alpha from February 27th to March 2nd on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series S and X, as well as PC through Steam. But don't worry, PS4 and Xbox One people, the game is planning to launch on those platforms as well, but we'll talk about that a little later. Now you might be asking yourself, didn't they already do an alpha like months ago? Yes, but the previous build was missing some of their big features like a large-scale 24-player multi-team Portal Warfare experience that's within this current build, as well as new maps, new modes, and a chaos playlist which is just wild. And for this weekend, there actually are going to be Twitch drops available for the game. Now, for full transparency, I was invited by 1047 Games to play this alpha build early with some other content creators. And then I was asked to make a video about my experience. But I was specifically told to speak directly and authentically to my community, and that's exactly what I'm going to do in this video. Because the developers at 1047 Games are not afraid of any form of criticism, they want that feedback to make the game better. And I had a chance to talk with the CEO directly at 1047 Games about my experience with the game, what was great, what could need improvement, what could be changed, because they want that feedback and information. So in this video, I'm going to be straight up and honest about Splitgate 2. So I'm going to be talking about the gameplay, the new maps, weapons, and abilities, and pretty much everything about Splitgate 2. So if you're curious about wanting to jump into this open alpha, you should have a pretty good idea after the end of this video. And since it's an open alpha, all you have to do is just download it. You can go find the link in my pinned comment and in the description of this video. It helps out the channel a lot. And if you want to support the developers, make sure to wishlist the game on Steam. So in my conversation with the CEO, I talked about the gameplay, the progression, the matchmaking. Yes, they do have skill-based matchmaking, but it's not the way you might think it will be utilized. Mouse and keyboard versus controller balance, and also why people should just play Splitgate in the first place. But if you want my initial impressions of Splitgate 2, the too long didn't watch, Splitgate 2 is a massive overall improvement in fidelity for sure when it comes to this game. Talking about graphics, lighting, animations, UI, music, audio, and overall just presentation, undoubtedly better than Splitgate 1. And that's not putting Splitgate 1 down at all, it's just that there was definitely limitations with it because it was a small group of friends in a dorm room. No joke, like 1047 Games is named after the number of their dorm room. But now they have an actual team of nearly 200 developers working on this game who have also worked on massive games like Halo, Call of Duty, and Fortnite. So Splitgate 2 has this really high fidelity and quality to the game that was really missing back in Splitgate 1. Oh, no scoop. That's going in the video. I have a feeling not a lot of people are going to be talking about that online because most people are going to be talking about the gameplay because they did make some significant changes to how Splitgate 2 plays. And you can tell that those changes were deliberately made to help increase long-term engagement with the game, which was the biggest issue with Splitgate 1. Because as a fan of the original game, I really didn't put that much time into it. I was just under 10 hours of game time. So I think I kind of fall into that typical player of Splitgate 1 who jumped in at the hype, had their fun with it, got a little repetitive, and then moved on to whatever I was already playing. So does Splitgate 2 have what it takes to carve out its own piece of the FPS player pie chart? Well, I would say yes, but if you want to know why, I suggest you stay tuned throughout the whole video to understand all the details. So let's talk about this open alpha. What's so different about it? What can you do in this game right now? Well, what you can do is the main new experience like I talked about earlier is the multi-team Portal Warfare 24-player match that has 3 teams of 8 fighting against each other, with the modes of Domination, Hot Zone, which is King of the Hill, and also Team Deathmatch. And in this alpha build, they only have one map called Glacier, which is I had a chance to jump in and play, which we'll talk about in this video as well, but it's 20 times larger than the largest arena map. This map is massive. You had 2 new maps added in with this build on top of the maps already from the previous alpha of Bypass and Eden. You had 2 new modes with this build of Split Ball, which is like CTF and Oddball kind of mixed together, and Firecracker, which is Search and Destroy, but with respawn mechanics. And a whole new playlist called Chaos, which is kind of like Halo's Fiesta mode, but basically think of just turn up Splitgate's knobs up to 11 and see what happens with like faster movement, lower gravity, fast ability, and equipment cooldowns. Like, it gets pretty wild. I'm gonna pick up the ball. Okay, we're
Let's go. We just need to
speed boost. Yes!
I just watched one of you touch the ball, dude.
That was amazing. I see a lot of people out there online just instantly call Splitgate 2 a hero shooter. That is absolutely not the case. These factions play more like classes from like Battlefield. These 3 factions have their own gameplay mechanics that help play into maybe adding this new style to how you play a map. With Eros being much more of a fast, aggressive type of play style, you have Meridian, which more like intel and support, and Sobra's kind of designed to create space and be kind of like a heavy hitter within the game. And each class have their own passive abilities, which help support the team, and their own active abilities they can utilize within the game. So for just this alpha build alone, there is a lot of content for you to jump in and experience. You can spend hours and hours just playing this alpha build alone, but this is only a section of what's going to be available for Splitgate 2 at launch, which I tried getting that answer out of the CEO in our conversations online, and he left it kind of open-ended, but just said that like people were fans of the features and different aspects and modes that were part of Splitgate 1, they'd be happy with the release of Splitgate 2. And like I said, this alpha will be running from February 27th until March 2nd. Again, like I said, you can use my links to help support the channel and get a chance to download the game and have some fun. This section of the video, I want to talk about the multi-team Portal Warfare mode. It's a 24-player lobby with 3 teams of 8 fighting to the death on the map. The lead over at 1047 Games said that they took big inspiration from Halo's big team battle and they wanted to bring that over to Splitgate 2, and saying, given the Halo-like gameplay of Splitgate 2, I definitely got that impression. But the one thing they didn't bring over from Big Team Battle of Halo is that there are no vehicles to be played within this mode, but I think it's really just because a lot of vehicles within Halo are oftentimes used more as transportation rather than lethality, besides like a Wraith or a tank or something like that. That's because you have portals where you can just teleport across the map, but you're definitely gonna have to utilize your portals because the map they're gonna be playing on, Glacier, like I said earlier, no kidding when they're talking about it being 20 times the size of any their larger arena maps, because you need to use the portal mechanics, because if you're not, you're going to be spending a lot of time walking. Now, the interesting twist in this Portal Warfare mode is that you have 3 teams instead of 2, which definitely makes it so then you can kind of get attacked really from any angle while playing this mode, compared to like a 2-team system where like it kind of creates a bit of a front line where you can spawn, then run up to where the action is. Where I felt like with 3 teams involved with the situation, you kind of always have to keep your head on a swivel and you always have to keep an eye out for anyone sneaking up behind you. So if you're someone who really likes that constant engagement within their shooters, I think you really find this mode really engaging. Long range weapons like a battle rifle or a marksman rifle are definitely going to be the way to go for more casual players, because you'll really need to be very familiar with Splitgate 2's mechanics and weapons to really make weapons like an assault rifle, SMG, or even a shotgun to be useful on this type of map, just because the lines of sight are so much longer. Splitgate 2 also adds in a slide mechanic into the game, which you actually take advantage of with this large scale map, because there are these big sloping hills you can actually slide all the way down, kind of like Apex Legends style. Just some fun extra movement mechanics. I would say my biggest critique of the Portal Warfare mode, where I do think it has a lot of potential and something really cool and unique you can do with 24 players large scale warfare, is that it lacked a bit of the expansion of the experience of 4v4. So what I mean by that is that if you take like Halo BTB or Call of Duty Ground War, for example, they have like vehicles and unique modes that add to the large scale experience. So for Splitgate 2, we played Domination, Hot Zone, and Team Deathmatch in 4v4, and you kind of just play those same modes again, but with more players. Obviously with more players allows you to go on these like bigger kill streaks and just kind of dominate the battlefield in a different way, but I just kind of found myself feeling like it's kind of the same experience as 4v4, but just larger in a way, like longer lines of sight and more players, right? It also could just be the map Glacier, which is the only one that we had available in our playtest, but it didn't really lend itself to very drastically different experiences that you can get within 4v4. Now, in our discussion that we had with the developers there, that they did talk about how they can twist and turn the knobs when it comes to different game modes and experiences you can play within 24 players. We even talked about the idea of having like duos within a 24 player lobby that might be like a single life kind of mode or something, like to kind of up the ante a little bit. And they're like, yeah, we can absolutely do something like that. So while having more people on the map can be more fun, right? More chaotic, a lot more stuff going on, it did feel like it was just kind of like the same experience, but just larger. So I would like to see them try to see if they can expand on the experience of big team battle like mode within Splitgate, offer some unique mechanics or new modes or some kind of thing to kind of up the ante a little bit with the larger player pool. But that's what alphas are for, right? It's to play the game, provide that feedback so then the developers know what the players want. So then when the game actually releases, it will hopefully make it into the game. But yeah, Portal Warfare, it's a lot of fun. It's just a lot of potential. So next I want to talk about the other modes within the game, within the 4v4 experience, the new ones that we played within this like Splitball, Firecracker, and their Chaos playlist, which absolutely lives up to its name. These new modes and playlists are an addition to the already existing Team Deathmatch, Domination, and Hot Zone. And like I said, Splitball is kind of a combination of CTF and Oddball kind of mashed together. Because basically you grab a ball and bring it to your base like CTF would to score your points, right? But you do also have the ability to steal the team's split ball from their base, bring it over to yours to count as a score. And like I said earlier, Firecracker is like search and destroy, but with respawns. But I didn't really get a chance to play the mode a whole lot. We played this a little bit though, so I didn't get a lot of time with it, but it still basically provided like that same like intense, one life experience moments that you can have with S&D, but also having a little bit more forgiveness with respawn mechanics. But other than that, the mode's rather self-explanatory if you've been a long-time FPS player. Now, one of my all-time favorite modes in FPS games are zone capture modes, right? And Domination is one of my all-time favorites from Call of Duty. It actually is my favorite mode from Call of Duty. I also love modes like Strongholds and Halo. So you have Domination returning with Splitgate too, but they mixed it up a little bit because it did a best of 5 round system where if overall match time felt pretty good. Like it didn't feel like the matches dragged on too long. But a big issue I had with it is that each round felt a little short and it felt really reliant on players to get a good start to a match. And if you're able to hold that for, I believe, like 2 or 3 minutes, then the round ends and you start back over again. And the thing about Domination, it's kind of like a tug of war type of experience, right? Where you have an ability to, maybe if you didn't have a good start, to find ways to flank around and then try to capture zones back or maybe back cap kind of thing. There's a lot of different strategies you can utilize with Domination. That's kind of the fun of the mode. And I felt like with the round-based experience that it just kind of left that behind and left it to be more just like, how good is your initial push? That's something that we did talk about to the development team, right? And other people, or the other content creators I play with, felt very similar to how they said a Domination. And 1047 heard our feedback, and most people agreed with kind of my sentiment with the experience of playing Domination. And they said like, yeah, it's definitely something that could change around, right? Because these are just like simple tunings and knobs that they can twist around. This is the reason why they had players like us jump in and play early, because this isn't going to be like, I just want to completely change. It's like making maybe like best of 3 rounds and have each round be a little bit longer. That's what I would think would be probably best for how Domination could play out. Now, I absolutely have to talk about one of the shining gems of my experience of playing Splitgate 2, and that's the Chaos playlist, which, like I said earlier, absolutely lives up to its name. Think of like Halo's like action sack experience where you can have like these wild, crazy, like turn the knobs up to 11 and see what happens kind of things. For this Chaos mode, we had like faster movement, lower gravity, fast ability, and equipment cooldowns as well, so you get that little spamming with it a little bit as well. And I found out that you can actually stack the rush ability, which increases your movement speed with the Eros faction, so I was able to go like full on ludicrous speed. Like I was moving so fast, I was burning controller players, and I was talking about in our post-game lobby feedback session, like a lot of the controller players like, dude, I couldn't keep up with you because you were moving so fast. My conversation with 1047 Games, they mentioned about how they wanted to utilize the Chaos playlist more as like a limited time mode for like events and things like that they're looking to do for their live service experience for Splitgate 2, which I think kind of fits it about right, because like, yeah, it has a really fun novelty experience that you can play for hours at a time, but maybe not be a consistent mode that you come back to unless they mix it up in some other kind of way to just like, again, keep the chaos fresh. They had this really fun 2v2v2v2, if I did the math correctly, mode on it, and that was actually a really cool idea. And we actually brought that up to the developers, like, we really like that duos mode that we had. If you can maybe push it over to like the 24 player playlist and kind of create some new mechanics with that, like when it comes to the gameplay, that would be really exciting. And they said, yeah, that's definitely something that they could pull off within the game, because again, it's just twisting knobs kind of thing rather than creating something new with like new assets or something like that. I'm just thinking about how a 24 player chaos playlist would be like. That would just be insane, but in the best way possible. Now I want to talk about the map design within Splitgate 2. We do have the new maps for this alpha of Bypass and Eden, and they're fine maps, right? Like they have kind of like typical 3-lane experience, but they're complicated enough where it allows player expression, but, simplified enough to where you can kind of understand the different points of advantage and power positions within like your first time playing the map. So the map design is very well done. But I do feel like this is where one of the biggest changes from Splitgate 1 to Splitgate 2 happened. Because Splitgate 1 had some really experimental maps that really broke the conventional 3-lane map design. With extreme verticality to place portals down to use momentum to kind of fling yourself through the map. I think of maps like Olympus, Highwind, and Abyss. This type of map design gave casual players a really easy opportunity to have fun with the physics within the game. But these maps definitely had an issue of lacking map flow. With so many portal walls and elevation differences that a lot of these maps can play out kind of like a maze and actually be kind of difficult to find engagements. But it's not like Splitgate 1 didn't have its own conventional map styles, right? With maps like Stadium, Oasis, and Pantheon, they play much more like a traditional 3-lane experience with portal walls. And that's kind of the design choices that they decided to go with Splitgate 2 for the most part. And I'm not saying that the 3-lane style of design is a bad design thing at all. There's a reason why so many maps do it, because it works so well. And also lacking the extreme verticalities that some of the maps in Splitgate 1 had, I found that myself not really getting an opportunity to use those really cool flinging mechanics so you can jump yourself through a portal to kind of fly across the map. Yeah, it might not be the most tactically advantaged movement, but it is fun to do. But let me use the map Abyss for example of what I'm talking about here when it comes to verticality. You can see right here how the different elevations that there are within this one map, right? 1 level, 2 levels, 3 levels, even all the way down here to 4th levels, right? We didn't have this kind of extreme verticality when it came to the modern Splitgate map, Splitgate 2 map design here. So when I'm talking about like utilizing physics, right? For example, like if I put a portal here, and say we put a portal like right down here, right? This extreme verticality where I can kind of just jump through this portal, fling myself across, right? And then, I don't know, if I was good at the game, I'd be able to utilize it in a different way to kind of keep this momentum going. But you kind of see what I'm talking about, how I was able to kind of create some really cool, unique experiences from my play session that like I can utilize this physics to kind of just do some wild and crazy things that you normally couldn't do within a game, right? That it was easy to read, right? We're like, okay, I can do some really cool physics with this section of the game. Whereas Splitgate 2 map design, I didn't really come across that. Where a map like Bypass, which they actually said is their most vertical map, doesn't have nearly the severity of verticality that some of the maps in Splitgate 1 has. And like I said, this also has a bit of a positive to it, but also a bit of a negative to it as well, where like it helps with map flow and helps you with player prediction of where enemies are going to be, right? Because with these portal mechanics, you can kind of just teleport around. So you need to find a way to make it so that the maps have flow to them, but also take advantage of the portal mechanics. And so I think it's kind of a nice middle ground right here. The maps definitely do play well. I just think it was just kind of missing that one little element that I really liked from Splitgate 1 to kind of help it really stand out amongst the crowd when it comes to the map design. All right, next I want to talk about the sandbox. What's all the fun little tools and things you can play around within Splitgate 2? Well, you have a bunch of different weapon choices, right? And they all play to their own factions, but they all generally are about the same, right? You have a fully auto weapon that's great for mid to short range, right? You have precision weapons for mid to long ranges. You all have shotguns. And they all play very similar to like how Halo weapons play out as well, which as a Halo player myself, I actually really enjoyed that. And just like Halo, they have power weapons you can pick up on the map as well, which actually do act as a bit of like power positions and locations to get people moving around the map, so then it creates urgency to players to be more engaging with the level rather than say like Call of Duty, where it's more about camping for kill streaks. In Splitgate, you gotta run out and get your kill streaks. And some of the power weapons would be the Bat, the BFB comes back with this build, which is the one-hit melee, which is just silly fun, right? You have the Fubar, which is the rocket launcher, plays just like a rocket launcher from Halo you would expect. A little bit more emphasis on direct hitting rather than splash damage, I would say. So it's not crazy powerful as a Halo rocket launcher. But one of my favorite weapons I found for the power weapon mechanics was the Split Stream. This is a weapon where you can attach it together and it acts like a powerful assault rifle, but you can also split it apart to dual wield it like an SMG, and this thing absolutely shreds at close range. It became one of those weapons where if I saw a Split Stream on the map being indicated that it's gonna spawn up, I'm like, I gotta get to that weapon because that is probably the most powerful power weapon within the entire game. Now, when it comes to the sandbox side of things, you gotta talk about the factions and abilities that come with Splitgate 2, which definitely helped freshen up the experience compared to Splitgate 1. And this is where I could tell 1047 Games really put the time into expanding the gameplay experience to be more than Splitgate 1 to create a longer lasting, more engaging gameplay experience. One of the biggest issues with Splitgate 1 was once the novelty of the game wore off, it got rather repetitive. So adding these factions with different abilities and different weapons and different kind of loads you can play around with helps increase that engagement a bit longer. Very similar to what I talked about earlier in this video of like Battlefield classes, how they help extend the player engagement and encourage players to use different weapons and gadgets to play the game differently. And Splitgate 2 factions function in a very similar way, allowing the player to play the same map but in a very different way. So we'll just say for an example, right, last time I played the map Eden, I stayed back, controlling power positions, watching angles, and providing info for my team as a Meridian faction. But say the next time I got around, I got a little more spicy. Well, then I wanted to zoom in and just, go right after the players, go right in the face. I'll go with the Eros faction right there, providing much more faster SMG type of gameplay, which then extends my gameplay experience, right? Because I'm playing the same map, but in a completely different way. Compare that to Splitgate 1, where I would just play the same map in the same way each time because that's what worked for me. And playing an online first-person shooter, you want to play the most effective tactics possible for you to get the most kills and have fun, so then it kind of got repetitive rather quickly. Though the addition of factions and abilities and cooldowns and things like that from compared to Splitgate 1, which is definitely rooted in the classic Halo Arena experience of even starts, adding some more abilities in it can definitely be a bit more polarizing for people who are really more fans of Splitgate 1's even starts mechanics, but I do feel like these abilities don't really get in the way too much of just having raw gameplay and portable mechanic skill. I know I keep drawing comparisons to Battlefield, but it kind of reminds me of how Battlefield works out, where it still feels like a first-person shooter, but you have helicopters, you have different types of vehicles, you have tanks, you have even jets in the game, but still feels like you can be successful for just being an FPS player, right, and just shooting guys. That's where I think kind of Splitgate feels where like these abilities help spice up the gameplay and help assist in certain situations, but still has a strong foundation of being a shooter first. But in my conversation with the leads over at 1047 Games, I want to know what's going on under the hood of the game, right? Because there are so many different factors that take into consideration that can drastically affect even if you enjoy the game in the first place. So there's three main things I want to talk about, which is one, the matchmaking, which is going to be talking about skill-based matchmaking, which is in the game, but with my conversation with the dev team, that it sounds like SBMM is being utilized in actually the best way possible. I also want to talk about mouse and keyboard versus controller optimization, right? Because so many times games can feel like a controller game. Like shooters nowadays have been so focused on trying to get that console audience, that casual audience, that things like aim assist and bullet magnetism can get kind of wild to the point where a game feels more like a controller game rather than a mouse and keyboard game, where this game has roots in PC. And also this game utilizes Unreal Engine 5, so we've seen a lot of games that utilize this engine have very rough performance, a lot of bugs and issues with the game, and I'm going to talk about that right now. As in performance with the game, even though it does use Unreal Engine 5, which has been kind of a hot topic recently within the gaming sphere, right? The performance of Splitgate 2, right, where you're going to jump in and play this alpha, that it actually plays super well. So well, in fact, it actually kind of gives me hope of how Halo is going to play out on Unreal Engine 5, because I was consistently getting high, smooth frame rates, no hitching, no weirdness that was happening, no glaring bugs that were getting in the way of me playing the game. I didn't crash once in my hours of playing this game. This game functions and plays like it's ready to release right now. And we're not even at the beta stage for Splitgate 2. And as someone who's played early access alpha builds of other games out there, Splitgate 2's alpha might be the best performing when it comes to FPS and stability I have ever played. My only issue I really had with the performance of the game was with the map Glacier. When the first time you jump in and play with it, that it was really choppy and framing and just felt really off, so I lowered all my settings down to low, which this game scales down a lot. If you're guys with low-end PCs, you definitely will still be able to play this game even if it does look really good. But the thing was that apparently it was a shader compilation issue, because after my first time playing through the map, everyone else was experiencing this as well with all the different types of stutters and issues that it was having. After that first time playing the map, played totally smooth, totally fine, just like any other arena map. And this is where I kind of talked about earlier about this game. We're also planning to launch on PS4 and Xbox One. You might be like, oh, this game's gonna get held back. Like, nope, as long as this game focuses a lot more on art style rather than graphic fidelity, which I really appreciate. I always go with art style over fidelity any time of the day. And this game does scale down very well. We're like, yeah, you can put it down on low. It will look a little memey and blurry, but at least you can play the game, and it's free. So that's why Splitgate 2 is designed this way, where it can have those high-end people really get the high-end quality graphic experience. But if you're someone who has a lower-end PC or play on a PS4 and Xbox One, you will still have a good experience playing the game. It might just not look as pretty as a high-end PC. Another little peek under the hood of Splitgate 2 would have to be the matchmaking system that they're going to utilize. And yes, this game does have skill-based matchmaking, which I would refer to more as engagement-based matchmaking. And in my conversation with the CEO of 1047 Games, he talks about how they actually changed the system from Splitgate 1, which focused a lot more on trying to have fair, even matches, right? Trying to get that 50% win-loss ratio kind of thing. Where with Splitgate 2, they're mixing it up a little bit where they're prioritizing ping and match times, which is absolutely the right way to do it. And then talking about skill will still be a factor within the game, but it will be much more loosened, where it'll be still kind of a wide variety of players within a single game, right? But it won't be a sweat fest like how some modern FPS games tend to be nowadays, with these highly tightened engagement-based optimized matchmaking systems that makes you feel like you're playing more of a hamster wheel algorithm rather than organically playing against people who just want to play Splitgate or any other games out there. I'm sure many of you are like, well, no, we don't want any type of engagement-based matchmaking, no skill-based matchmaking, bring it back to the old days of the 360 PS3 era. Well, we saw what happened with that, right? Games like XDefiant had no SBMM in their matchmaking, and a lot of people cited that, you had those high-end skill players who just only played this game, dominating on low-skill players. And I think with any first-person shooter game, I think it does need some form of skill-based / engagement-based optimized matchmaking, but it doesn't need to be so strict and sweaty like some games out there now are, because you need to find a way to kind of protect those newer players or just people with maybe even disabilities or something like that, where the really low end of skill players can still have fun and feel like they're not getting completely dominated on people, but also not have it so then these higher end skill players feel like they have to constantly sweat or the entire match leans on them to do well. And if they slightly underperform, then they have no chance of winning the game, which is kind of what current systems within other games are like. And for the last peek under the hood, I really want to look into the mouse and keyboard versus controller aiming mechanics, right? And how these two inputs are balanced, right? Because Splitgate has a very significant player base on console as well as PC. And like I mentioned earlier, there's so many shooters out there that feel like they cater to a specific type of input, right? Say with like Call of Duty or even Halo, they feel very much more like a controller game. And as a mouse and keyboard player, I feel like I'm just playing with my input just because I just prefer to play that way, knowing that I'm playing at a disadvantage. And then that's not a feeling that I want to have. Well, I can say with my time by playing Splitgate 2, and other content creators felt the same way within our post-game discussions, that it didn't really feel like I noticed anybody who's clearly a controller player or someone who's clearly a mouse and keyboard player. It did feel like it was just pretty natural, like the reasons why I would die. I didn't really feel like there was any kind of situation. I was like, oh, I clearly died because of aim assist or bolt magnetism or anything weird like that. And I don't really feel like mouse and keyboard needs aim assist like you'd see in Halo, right? Because in Halo, the strafing speed was so fast and so crazy and instantaneous that like it almost was impossible for mouse and keyboard to be even a viable platform to play on. Where in Splitgate, strafing definitely is a mechanic you need to utilize. There were definitely some nasty strafes I came across while playing against some other content creators, but they weren't anything too crazy where I felt like I couldn't overcome it because I was playing on mouse and keyboard and they were maybe been playing with a controller. It's more just me not having good aim. Again, this is where like the open alpha experience really comes in handy, where you get a chance to have it out to the general public to get a chance to play the game and see how that balance between the two are. But from my experience playing against high skilled players, I didn't really notice any times where I felt like I was being outplayed by an input rather than me just not being good enough at the game. So the last section I want to talk about in this long video, guys, but I care a lot about Splitgate because I think this is a game where, like I said earlier, I really want to see succeed. It's a game that I think we really need to see succeed within the industry because it's doing so many things right and unique that I really want this game to do well. And I really wanted to try to find a way to like provide like almost an elevator pitch for you guys of why you should play Splitgate. And I asked that with the CEO directly. I was like, just tell me, why should people play Splitgate 2? And to summarize what the CEO said, that Splitgate 2 is a fresh, new experience that isn't like anything out there, right? And he noticed a gap in the market of people who enjoy those Halo mechanics, but there really isn't any other game out there besides Halo that tries to capture that feeling. And he said if you're tired of like modern FPS games and how they're playing, right, especially games like Halo and Call of Duty, that there's nothing really like Splitgate 2, and it's definitely something worth giving it a go. I mean, it's free. Now, I would absolutely agree with that statement as well, is that you can definitely see the influences that the game wears on its sleeve with like the Halo mechanics and Halo type weapons, but also creating like that snappy, fast experience that you get with like Call of Duty, and utilizing portals just to kind of create some crazy, unique experiences you can't really get anywhere else in a shooter. And this isn't even the full game that we're going to get, right? There's so many other parts of the game. I remember asking the CEO, like, are there going to be parts of the game that people enjoy from Splitgate 1, say like the custom game browser, the Forge mode that they had also within the game? Are we going to see that being brought back? And while I didn't get a straight answer from the CEO of 1047, it did state that people who are fans of some of the features that were in this previous game are going to be very happy with Splitgate 2. If you made it this far in the video, I hope I earned your like, maybe even a subscribe. And if you want to know who the real ones are that made it to the end of the video, leave a green heart in the comments. I definitely see you guys out there. Thank you all for watching. Greatly appreciate it. If there's any content from me recently, check out these videos right here. And thank you all for watching. I greatly appreciate it. Now go play some Splitgate 2.